Talking Budo. Introduction to Kanji. Radicals. Kanji are not just bunches of random lines and squiggles. They're made of parts, and these parts are called radicals. There are 214 radicals that are traditionally used in Japanese. There's no need to try to memorize this jumbled mess of characters. We're going to break them down into categories. You're only going to need about 6 radicals to cover about 25% of the most common characters. Most of these are going to fit into the pictograph category that we talked about earlier. Pictographs are the characters that look like what they are: mouth, water, tree, person, hand, heart. Now, it may be a stretch to say that some of these look like what they are, but just kind of go with me on this for right now. If you add 12 more characters, you increase the number of kanji you can recognize to about 50%. Word, plant, sun or day, crown, thread, shell, meat or moon, depending, woman, ground, wall or village, road, and finally gold or metal. Remember the kanji for samurai that we saw in the previous video? The radical is on the left. In this case, it means person. If the radical is on the left, it's called hen. Now, this means inclination or bias, but that you don't need to remember that. That really isn't going to help you much. If it's on the right, it's called tsukuri. Again, what's most important is not that you remember these names, but that you start to recognize where these things can show up in the characters. If it comes up top, it's called kamuri, which means crown. Now notice the top of this one has the character for rain, and if you look at the bottom, it kind of looks like a kite that maybe Ben Franklin would fly up into a thunderstorm. Put together, this character means electricity. Now, that's not the real etymology of the character, but it's helpful to remember it. Another interesting thing is the name kamuri, which means crown. Does it sound a little familiar to you? It should. Kamuri, in English, became Camry. Now, radicals can show up in different places. For example, if it shows up at the bottom, it's called ashi, which means leg. If the radical surrounds another part of the character, either partially or completely, it could be called kamae. This one is called tare. You can see how it kind of hangs off the other part of the character. If the radical is on the bottom left like this, it's called nyo, which means surround. Now here's something that can get confusing. Here are 3 different characters for fire, heart, and water. Now notice, when the character shows up as a radical on the left, it takes a different form than when it shows up as a radical on the bottom. Do you see the difference? Next time, we're going to talk about how radicals work.